Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is that you are, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for making us a part of your day. Hi, I'm Brad Franklin, creative content writer here in Chesterfield, and I'm very happy to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. This is a fun episode, especially for me, all of us here, because we're going to talk to somebody who is very instrumental in all of us being here, and certainly instrumental in all of the ways that communications happen from the county out to you. And hopefully, it's something that as we go forward, you're going to learn a lot about the way that the county communicates. I'd like to first welcome Director of Communications and Media, Susan Pollard, to the podcast. Susan, how are you?
I am just fine, Brad. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. I'm a little stressed because it's not very often that you interview your boss, that you interview someone who was instrumental in you getting a job, right? But I think that this is a fun episode. We're going to talk about, obviously, communication in 2021 and sort of the moving forward and the lessons learned and how things have changed. I guess the easiest place to start is to say, how exactly did it come to be that you were Director of Communications and Media? Like, is that something that you always set out to as a goal? Did it sort of just happen that way? How did you become, Communications Director?
No, it was not a goal. As a young child, I have to say I had other aspirations. But basically, I've spent about 20 plus years of my career in communications, and I've worked at all levels, local and state, and even some federal, where I've been loaned out to some agencies. And it's one of those things that it just developed. I have experience in government and communications, and I came here to Chesterfield County in about 2014 when Chesterfield was looking at all of the ways that you could communicate and really wanted to build upon the foundation that they already had here and take it into some new directions. And that was really the opportunity for me to come here and build upon that and to explore other possibilities, everything from video to social media to podcasts. It's been really that sort of opportunity to grow, build, and actually do something for the residents and communicate directly to the residents and help the county do that.
Yeah. I would imagine that over the course of your career, you've seen lots of things that change. And I'm curious to get into this discussion, to talk a little bit about sort of the ways that communications have changed over the year. I would imagine, here we are on a podcast, right? Which this was not a thing, 10 years ago that you can imagine a county government really, focusing on. But I'm curious, as you look back on your career, especially the last, however many years here in Chesterfield, how has communication changed, and has it changed fundamentally, in your opinion?
Oh, it's changed drastically. When you think about the opportunities that government now has that it didn't have just even 10 years ago, I kind of mentioned about the social media and all of the opportunities with video. In our technology has allowed things to be a bit easier for government and to be able to do a reasonable investment to be able to get the information out. We no longer have to necessarily rely on third parties to get our information out. We have this wonderful opportunity, again, through all the different ways that I've mentioned, to speak directly to our citizens and to share information about the programs and the services that are available to our citizens. And it's pretty exciting. It's an exciting time to be in communications because of that. And it's also really wonderful for the citizen because there's more opportunities for them to stay involved and to basically stay informed. Like I said, we have the social media. We've leveraged that information out there on all the different platforms that are out there. We also have looked at ways to form partnerships where we've actually formed a partnership with Lamar Advertising, and we utilize some billboards to put information out. Then, of course, we have the website, and we have video production. We have incredible video production here where we utilize YouTube, do live streaming. We also have, you can watch it on cable. Some people still have cable.
That's right.
So you can still do that, but you can also watch it live. So it's really given us that opportunity to interact with the citizens in ways that government hasn't been able to interact before.
as a follow-up, I want to ask a little bit about, you mentioned Lamar and the relationship there and that partnership with them and the billboards. I think there are, 1.1 million views per week on the various billboards in the county or something like that. Talk to me a little bit about that, how that partnership came about and the kind of messages that Chesterfield puts on those billboards in order to get information out to citizens and residents.
Well, it was essentially a partnership that started about, I guess, 2 years ago. And as Lamar has put some other billboards out, they have given us space free of charge. So it's not costing the county any money in terms of putting this information out, but it's public service announcements. Right. So we can put information out about the different programs and services that the county provides. And it's really been great. And you're right, collectively it's about 1.1 million. But it's also another way for the individuals that maybe don't communicate digitally and they aren't following us on Facebook or necessarily they just aren't into social media. We have these billboards that we can put, a variety of different information, and we have 7. So it works out really wonderfully. They're spaced throughout the county, and there's an opportunity for us to have more. Yeah. But again, it's been a wonderful partnership.
And then one other thing I wanted to bring up was I know in August of 2020, obviously with the floods, that was a very different sort of crisis response from a communication standpoint, simply because of sort of the time frame that it happened in, right? Because it was in the midst of a pandemic and there was a whole lot going on. What was that experience like, and what lessons maybe did you learn from that?
Well, that also goes back to kind of when you talked about the landscape changing,
right?
Because prior really to all of these different tools that government has had, they had to rely on third parties to get that information. But as you mentioned in the flood, and it was August 16th, 2020, we were able to put flood information out directly to our residents and basically keep residents informed about everything that was happening in the community, the roads that were closed, give them information as to where to go to get more information about road closures. Even if we knew also certain areas that are really safety information that we needed to put out, we were able to do that. And one of the things, again, going back to the landscape changing, is that we've found through the website, the social media, those different types of tools, that we do become that source. We become that source of information for residents, and they don't necessarily have to go directly and wait for it to be, broadcast on a news channel. I'm not saying that, media is great at getting our information out, but this allows us to have that direct connect with residents.
Yep. And one other thing before we move on to my next question, I want to mention Notify Me. Obviously, that's a huge opportunity for folks. If they go to Chesterfield.com, Chesterfield.gov/list, there's obviously a lot of information and ways for them to get that kind of alerts and that kind of thing.
There is, and when you go through, I think there's like 60 that you could sign up for. So it can be a bit overwhelming, but you can delve into the information as little or as much as you want. And that's what's so wonderful too, is the opportunity that you're not always having to go check the website.
Right.
You can sign up for these notifications so that when something new is posted in whatever topic or category that you want to follow, that you can immediately get notified, thus Notify Me. Yeah. And then of course, sign up for a variety of different tools. Right. But we do have the general web page that is Chesterfield.gov/connect with us. And that will basically hook you up to all the different places that you can learn about information and programs and services that the county has to offer.
Yeah. Speaking of being notified about alerts and that kind of thing, we talked about crisis, communications and what that was like in a pandemic. I want to focus a little bit on the pandemic and sort of I think in some ways in communications, it feels like some of the changes that have happened in recent years were probably already coming and were changing. It's just like the pandemic hit fast forward on some of that. because you had to be remote, because you had to get messages out in maybe a non-traditional sort of sense. How do you feel like Chesterfield sort of rode the energy of that? How did the county kind of use that to its advantage in terms of communications?
Chesterfield really did use it to its advantage in terms of the benefits that it could bring to citizens with communications. And, you talk about riding that energy. We were on a trajectory already where we were trying to communicate in venues where individuals were getting their information and their news, and trying to communicate in broader ways than we had in the past. We were already on the path, as you said. The pandemic just expedited it, but it also was the opportunity and the foresight of the board and of the administration to essentially see, hey, this is something that we need to continue to invest in, and it benefits our residents because we're able to, again, have that direct connect and interaction with our residents. And so the board really truly invested in it, and everything just sort of expedited. But it became huge as we moved through the pandemic because we were able to really start doing some things virtual, doing some virtual community meetings. And then also, again, the pandemic, there was so much information out there that was so confusing. And it was kind of, where do you turn? And it was an opportunity for us to work with the state health department and to try to share information out there to help our citizens get the information. We did everything from having our webpage with COVID-19 resources and listed links that you could go to even, again, using our social media and sharing information. So Chesterfield really has taken that opportunity, and it benefits the citizens. The other thing I'd like to add, too, is when you look at the totality of the different things that we put out from a department perspective, we support all the different departments in Chesterfield. So all of the different programs and services may be provided by mental health support services, planning, Parks and Rec, those different departments, we're supporting them. We're helping them get their information out. And we have an incredibly talented team that is able to produce these different products. The podcast, obviously, as we say here on the podcast. And, it's a video podcast. So it has another component.
Much to my chagrin, for the record. Much to my chagrin.
But we have a TV station. So that streams live. So we're able to put it out as a podcast and people can subscribe to it. And we're also able to put it on a TV station and on our YouTube channel. Well, we just launched a blog to really have those in-depth kind of explanations or communications to explain a story that maybe needs a little bit more detail to it. We have had our video production, and we continue to increase that. We have our social media and all the different platforms, as I mentioned earlier. But we also have an e-newsletter that goes out every week, every Tuesday. And it is written so that it can be, again, as quick of information you want, headlines, or you can delve into it even more if you want more information with links. So, and that comes to everybody's inbox on Tuesday. So sign up for it if you haven't. Yes, that I had to give the plug for that. But, when you look at all the different variety of tools that we are producing to communicate and to interact, to build that relationship with the citizen, to provide the information, it takes a lot of individuals and talented individuals to get that information out. And they're very committed to making sure that we get the information out, we get it out timely, and it's accurate. That is the other thing. But overall, it's been a wonderful investment that Chesterfield has taken advantage of in terms of really the benefit that this brings to citizens.
I feel like in the big scheme of things, communications departments for county governments used to be, a lot of print brochures. And that's not to say that print doesn't still have its place. It certainly does. But now there's so much more digital, and there are so many people who aren't going to receive messages the same way maybe that historically they had, and vice versa, right? When we have to sort of cover that gamut, right? We have to basically, what's the adage, meet people where they are, so to speak. And I'm curious, for me, I guess I think of it, you kind of went from print to instant, the idea of, used to have something you could hold, and now you can't hold a podcast. I mean, we're technically holding one right now, but you know what I mean? You can't hold a blog post, you can't hold a tweet, right? But that information is extremely important for people. How has that sort of transition, that pivot, how has that felt? How has it been? What's your experience been like as you've gone through that sea change?
Well, it's been challenging, but I think it's also provided a lot of opportunities for individuals to be able to participate in county government. When you look at the print products that we do, and we still do print products. They do have their place. Brochures and posters and flyers, they do certainly are another way to communicate, and certainly we still do those. But we've also been able to expand those conversations with our citizens and with the community so that we can actually have more of a direct feedback right away. People can put questions out on social media, and we respond to them. People can email us. People can. We have public portals oftentimes set up for certain projects where we, basically solicit feedback on projects. So I think that we've done a really good job of trying to, as you say, meet people where they are and to get that information out. It really depends on how involved someone wants to be in terms of, again, do they want to sign up for 60 notifications? Or,
how many newsletters do you really want to get?
Right, because we do have a variety of different newsletters.
Yeah, that's right.
We have the county newsletter, and then we have like the library's newsletter and just other newsletters. So again, based on maybe what an individual's interest is, maybe also, again, how many notifications they want to get, there is an opportunity for involvement in terms of just staying apprised of what is going on in their community.
Obviously, there's a lot that goes into what's going to be my final question here. But a lot of your time was in communications was pre-COVID, right? Before the last 18, 24 months. And nobody wants to relive 2020. But I'm curious in terms of, from a communication standpoint, what sort of lessons do you feel like you learned as a director, as a department, that not only are you using now, but that you're going to use going forward? What kinds of things are here to stay? Because, that time frame sort of opened a door. Obviously the podcast was something is a new medium for the county, the blog, the same way. But I'm just curious, what lessons do you feel like you learned from that you can take forward?
I think that when you look at some of the things that we had to turn around and do so quickly because it happened so abruptly, suddenly everything had to be remote, providing virtual options to our residents to be able to communicate and to stay up to date on issues and programs and services, that was really a big change. And, we were providing virtual options because when all of this hit, we were actually just finishing up our budget season and in 2020. And so we had to make some changes to that budget, and we could not host meetings. And so one of the things that we did was we held a virtual community meeting and through a Facebook Live and had it stream on YouTube, and it was on our TV station. And so there were a variety of ways for people to connect. And when you think about pre-pandemic, we'd have, if we were lucky, about 15 people show up at a community meeting.
Right.
And rightly so. Sometimes, the community meetings are in the evenings, and we all have a home life that we have certain things we have to do in the evenings.
Right.
But what the virtual option did is it opened it up to a whole group of individuals out there who wanted to stay informed, wanted to learn more, but they couldn't necessarily come. Well, that pandemic gave us that option to basically provide that. And you were suddenly seeing, 100, 300 people log on to view a community meeting. And I see those virtual meetings. Obviously, we do want to hold things in person, and we plan to continue to do that and as things open up and as they have. But also that virtual option, providing the option to someone who may not be able to come out there and see it. And then also we have it taped. That's the other thing. So when we talk about, again, having that conversation with residents, people are able to submit questions during the virtual community meeting, and they're able to submit information through the public portal. So there's a variety of ways for people to still connect. And I don't see that going away, and it really shouldn't. And I know that the county is really committed to making sure that there are as many ways for residents to stay informed, to communicate, and to interact and have these conversations and make this community so that we are as active and we're listening and that everybody is connecting as much as possible. And these communications tools let us do that.
Right.
The other thing I'd like to say, too, is in terms of working with the media outlets. We have an individual who works with the media outlets, and working with them, they're able to get some of our information off of the many, many tools that I've just talked about, and share that information. So again, it allows us to put information out quickly, speak directly to our residents, and really at the same time connect.
One quick follow-up. You mentioned the option obviously to have virtual meetings, and that sort of takes the county's message and sort of allows people to essentially talk to us when they aren't maybe at a physical location. But there's also the campaigns and the different ways for outreach that we do, like Woof and Wag, like the Kindness Campaign. And I just was just curious, that's got to be something that's also, in some ways, something that the communications departments have long done, right? Outreach. But this one it's another one of those products of the pandemic, which feels like ways to, people were so isolated for so long. And now it's like, ways to get out there, ways for people to engage. I'm just curious from your point of view, what Woof and Wag and things like the Kindness Campaign mean to the department.
I think that they are definitely an integral part of all the communications that we provide. When you look at campaigns such as that, where we were going out into the community and going to the parks and then also asking for individuals to submit, random acts of kindness information on their friends and neighbors or family, it's another way for the county to continue that relationship with residents and to connect and to make sure that, again, we're building the community and the quality of life collectively that we want. We're all part of this community. And, having that, government does provide services, but government still is human because we all have a home life. We all, want to live in a safe community, a quality of life we all aspire to in terms of just making sure that our families are happy and healthy. Well, these types of campaigns, connect to that.
Right.
And, it also brings that, again, that warmth, that sense of community. And I think they're very, very vital to something, even to, a collective look at everything we do as a department to support the county. And it's something that, as we continue to grow, we're definitely going to expand upon.
All right. Well, Susan, thank you very much for joining us today and talking to us about all of the different things from, pre-pandemic to, hopefully at some point post-pandemic or the new world or however it works for communications. Obviously, a whole lot of lessons learned, but thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not going to give you all the social media handles today, but I'm also going to tell you that you can check out Chesterfield.gov/connect with us to find out a number of ways to connect with the county. And certainly, I want you to make sure you check out the podcast. Let me tell you how you can do that. First, you can check us out on YouTube, on our channel, as well as on our website, Chesterfield.gov/podcast. An audio-only version of the show is available there, as well as on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, and a whole host of other services. You can also watch the podcast on WCCT Thursday through Sunday at 7 and on weekends at noon. That's Comcast Channel 98 and Verizon Channel 28. My thanks to my director, Martin Stith, my producer, Vernon Freeman, to Susan, to Matt, and to everybody here at Communications and Media for making this possible. Very much appreciate all that they do. So happy holidays to everybody out there. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Take good care.